March 3rd, 1943, 2:17 hours. North Atlantic, 300 miles southwest of Iceland. The sea is black glass under a moon smothered by clouds, and U-99 slices through it like a steel predator. The conning tower is slick with freezing spray, every breath turning to needles in the air. Below deck, the engine room hums with the familiar vibration that every U-boat man claims he can feel in his bones. Captain Otto Kretschmer stands on the bridge, gray cap pulled low, binoculars fixed on the faint silhouette of an Allied convoy crawling across the horizon. 50 merchant ships. 3 escorts. A gift from Poseidon himself. Approach from the shadow side, he murmurs. We take 2, maybe 3. Before they even know we're here, his first officer nods. They've done this 100 times. The wolfpack is assembling 99. U-94, U-92. Dozens of steel beasts. The plan tonight is simple. Slash through the convoy's defenses, fire at close range, vanish before the escorts can react. For years, it has worked. Kretschmer's men move with quiet confidence. Cocky even. Why wouldn't they be? The Atlantic is their hunting ground. The British call him Silent Otto for a reason. Strikes fast and disappears faster. Inside the U-boat, the air tastes of diesel oil and sweat. Crewman wipes condensation from a gauge with the sleeve of his coat. Range closing, the weapons officer whispers, convoy speed. 8 knots. The hunters glide into position. You can almost feel the tension hanging in the cramped control room. It's the kind that makes hearts beat a little harder, not with fear, but with thrill. They are predators, dominant, untouchable, or so they believe. Kretschmer lowers his binoculars. Torpedoes. Bereit. Ready. U-99 angles upward. Preparing for the classic surface attack. A maneuver so fast and unexpected that Allied captains dread seeing torpedo wakes slicing toward them. The first shot is perfect. A merchant ship erupts into a fireball, flames lighting the night sky like a dying sun. The blast echoes across the water. The men on U-99 grin. Another easy kill, another message to the Allies. You cannot protect your convoys. But tonight something feels off, too quiet. On the edge of the convoy, the lead American escort, a destroyer named USS England, peels away from formation. Slowly, deliberately, as if it's not responding to the explosion, but waiting for something. Kretschmer watches the ship through narrowed eyes. What is it doing? His second officer mutters. There's no radar ping, no depth charge rattle, no alarmed maneuvering. Just that destroyer, drifting toward them like a man strolling into a forest knowing exactly where the wolves are hiding. Then the lookout shouts, "Destroyer turning broadside." The silhouette of the USS England shifts, presenting its bow toward the U-boat. Not its depth charge rails, but something else, something boxy, elevated. A strange multi-barrel apparatus Kretschmer has never seen before. It looks harmless, but every instinct in his body screams otherwise. "Dive, Schnell," he barks. The klaxon blares. Men scramble. The hull groans as the U-boat tilts down, slipping beneath the surface. At 20 meters, the usual pattern should begin depth charges rolling off the destroyer's stern. The familiar thunder of explosions chasing them deeper. But instead, nothing. Silence. Kretschmer grips a handrail. Sweat trickles down his spine despite the cold. What is that thing? A crewman whispers. No one answers. The U-boat settles at 70 meters. The captain listens carefully to the hydrophone operator, who shakes his head. Still silence. And then a sound, at the heavy splash of depth charges, not the deep rumble of detonations far astern. This is different. A cluster of faint plops, dozens of them, right above their position. The hydrophone man pales. They're dropping small charges from the bow. Directly forward. Impossible. Depth charges can't do that. They fall behind a ship, not ahead of it. Kretschmer's eyes widen. The ocean trembles. And suddenly the sea erupts around them. A cluster of explosions. Smaller, sharper, terrifyingly precise rip through the water. The U-boat jolts violently. Lights flicker. Men are thrown against metal bulkheads. A pipe bursts, spraying freezing water into the control room. Another blast closer. U-99 screams like a wounded animal. What is this weapon? A sailor cries. Kretschmer doesn't answer. His mind races through every Allied innovation he's heard rumors about. None match this. Small charges thrown forward of a destroyer, set to detonate only on impact. The realization hits him like a punch. Whatever this new device is, it's designed not to scare a submarine. It's designed to kill it. Depth increasing. Someone shouts. We're losing buoyancy. Kretschmer grabs the periscope handles to steady himself. The ship, the silent hunter of the Atlantic, is suddenly prey. And the enemy above them knows exactly where to strike next. He locks eyes with his first officer. This is no depth charge, he whispers. It's something else. Something new. Something deadly. The USS England adjusts course overhead and prepares to fire again. The USS England's propellers churn overhead, their rhythm steady, almost calm. It's if the destroyer isn't hunting, it's executing. Inside U-99, red emergency lights flicker. The boat creaks under pressure, steel frames shuddering with each groan. Water sprays from ruptured seams, misting the air with salt and panic. Kretschmer steadies himself, gripping the chart table. Trim tanks compensate, he orders. But the boat is sluggish to respond. The blasts from above struck near the bow, crushing outer plating and damaging ballast controls. The crew scrambles through the narrow passageways, boots sloshing in ankle-deep water. One petty officer shouts, "Captain, pressure hole holding." For now. For now. The most dangerous phrase at sea. In the hydrophone compartment, the operator listens with trembling hands pressed to the headset. Multiple splashes, he whispers. Dozens. Coming down right on top of us again, Kretschmer closes his eyes. He doesn't understand the weapon, but he understands the intent. The Allies have found a way to pinpoint U-boat positions with terrifying accuracy. Instead of blanketing the ocean with depth charges and hoping for a lucky hit, this new method is deliberate, surgical. A voice breaks into the tension. "Captain, permission to rise and attempt evasive maneuvers." Kretschmer shakes his head. "No, if we rise now, we die. Hold depth. Prepare for shock." His men brace themselves. Above them on the deck of the USS England, sailors work with clockwork precision. The new device mounted on the bow is spiked, circular array swivels into position. It holds 24 small contact-fused bombs, each the size of a milk can. To the untrained eye, it looks unimpressive, but to those who know, it is called the Hedgehog. Instead of rolling explosives behind the ship, the Hedgehog launches its payload forward in a tight pattern, forming a lethal underwater minefield centered exactly where the submarine is predicted to be. And crucially, these bombs only explode on impact. If they detonate, they've hit the U-boat. The American gunnery officer watches his target plot carefully. Range 180 yards. Depth 60 meters. Fire. A thundering whoop shakes the deck. 24 projectiles arc silently through the night. Sky dark silhouettes against darker clouds and plunge into the Atlantic with soft splashes that no man aboard. U-99 can hear, but they can feel the dread. In the control room, a sailor clutches a lucky charm. Another mutters a prayer. You can almost smell the fear rising from their uniforms, mingling with the diesel and seawater. The Hedgehog pattern descends. Precisely. The first blast strikes. Boom. This one is even closer than before. The U-boat shudders violently. A light bulb bursts overhead, showering sparks. Men are thrown sideways. Boom. Another detonation, this time along the starboard side. A panel blows off the wall, ricocheting across the room like shrapnel. The weapons officer staggers to his feet. We can't take another hit like that. Kretschmer doesn't answer, staring at the depth gauge as it trembles, then begins to spin. Negative buoyancy increasing. We're sinking, a crewman reports. Level the boat, Kretschmer shouts. The officers wrench at wheels and levers. Pumps roar to life. Compressed air hisses through pipes. The U-boat begins to slow its descent. But not enough, Captain, engineer calls out, voice cracking. We've lost control of the forward ballast, or nose heavy. The U-boat pitches downward like a dying whale. Down 80 meters, hull groans. Walls flex. A web of hairline cracks creeps along the forward compartment. Kretschmer knows the truth. At 200 meters, the pressure will crush them like a tin can. At 150, maybe earlier, the hull could fail. They must stop the descent. He makes a decision few U-boat captains would dare. Blow all ballast. Emergency ascent. Gasps erupt from the crew. to the surface, under a destroyer. "If we stay here, we die," Kretschmer snaps. Surface. The crew obeys. Air roars into tanks. The U-boat lurches as buoyancy shifts violently. The bow rises, slowly, painfully. Then the hydrophone operator stiffens. They're loading again. The destroyer above them has begun preparing a second Hedgehog salvo. Kretschmer knows they won't survive one more direct hit underwater. "We break the surface before they fire," he mutters. "We don't break it at all." A rumble fills the boat like distant thunder. Depth: 60 meters, 55, 50. The crew watches the gauge with wide, terrified eyes. Their lives now depend on a single question. Will the Americans fire before U-99 escapes the deep? The hull rises. Faster, faster. 40 meters. Outside, the sea churns violently as bubbles explode upward. On the deck of the USS England, sailors brace the Hedgehog mount for another launch. But something interrupts their firing solution. A sudden swirl of white water directly ahead. A shadow beneath the surface, rising. It's coming up, the lookout shouts. The destroyer captain turns sharply. "Stand by. Prepare to engage on the surface." U-99 surges upward like a breaching beast. The next 5 seconds will decide whether anyone aboard survives the night. The Atlantic erupts. U-99 explodes upward in a surge of white foam, its battered conning tower slicing through the surface like a wounded leviathan gasping for air. Salt water cascades from the hull and sheets. The metal is visibly scar-dented, burned, screaming from the inside out. Ashmer shouts through the hatch off talking, "Surface, surface," everyone on stations. Cold night air pours into the control room as sailors climb toward the bridge. Men are coughing, bleeding, scrambling over one another in the chaos. Fear has carved itself into their faces. Above them, the USS England pivots hard to starboard. Floodlights snap on. Harsh white beams slash across the water, cutting through the spray and illuminating the dark silhouette of the resurfacing U-boat. "Target sighted. Target sighted," an American gunner yells. The destroyer doesn't hesitate. Bark, bark, bark. The 20mm Oerlikon cannons open fire, tracers arching across the sea like burning red needles. They hammer the U-boat's conning tower, punching holes in the steel, ricocheting along the deck with deafening metallic screams. Kretschmer ducks instinctively, dragging his first officer down with him as bullets shred the air. "Get below," he shouts to the bridge crew. Crash dive down. But even as he gives the order, he knows the truth. They can't dive. Not this damaged. Not in time. Not with the destroyer already turning to rake them with heavier guns. Below deck, the chief engineer slams his fist against a ruptured valve. "We can't submerge. Forward ballast is gone." The hull tilts, groaning, as water still floods the bow compartments. Men struggle to keep their footing as the floor trembles under fresh hits. On the destroyer, the gunnery officer switches to a new command. "Bring the 5-inch online." A moment later, a booming Kothum shakes the night sky. A shell streaks out over the waves, slamming into the ocean just meters from U-99. The blast erupts in a geyser of fire and water, drenching the crew. "Captain, we must abandon ship," a sailor cries. Kretschmer grips the rail, knuckles white. The lights of the destroyer burn into his eyes like judgment. "No," he mutters, voice low. "Not yet." He forces himself back into command mode. All men prepare smoke launchers. Starboard side. Now, the sailors race to the deck tubes and fire the canisters. A plume of thick gray smoke spreads across the water, billowing outward like a drifting fog bank. It buys them seconds. Nothing more. The destroyer cuts through the smoke with its searchlights, trying to reacquire the target. Kretschmer points toward the horizon. Head flank. Make speed. The diesel engines roar to life ragged, coughing but alive. The U-boat crawls forward, pushing through choppy waves. Water sloshes across the deck. Sparks shoot from exposed wiring. Inside, the crew works frantically, trying to keep the engines from stalling. Speed for knots, maybe 5, the helmsman reports. She's barely holding. Kretschmer clenches his jaw. In perfect condition, U-99 could outrun a destroyer underwater. But on the surface, crippled, they have no chance. A new flash of light catches his eye. The destroyer is emerging from the smoke curtain bigger, brighter, monstrous under its own floodlights. The bow waves rise like twin white fangs. The long barrel of the 5-inch gun is turning. "Brace," someone shouts. A second 5-inch shell thunders toward them, slams into the water just off the port bow closer. Closer still. The explosion nearly throws men from the deck. A fire breaks out near the aft section, glowing orange against the night. Below deck, gauges swing wildly. "We're losing the port engine," the engineer yells. Kretschmer feels the vibration changing beneath his boots. Their speed drops again. On the destroyer, the captain lowers his binoculars. Range 900 yards. Finish the job. The USS England begins closing in, each second narrowing the gap, its weapons hungry. Kretschmer looks around at the devastation, the shattered deck plating, the terrified crew, the burning aft section. But something inside him refuses to surrender. He turns to the helmsman. "Hard starboard. Bring us perpendicular. We're going down. We'll face them." The U-boat turns, slicing across a wave. Smoke billows behind them. Fire flickers along the deck. The men brace for the next shell, but before it comes, a lookout screams from above. "Captain, another ship approaching port side." Kretschmer snaps his head around. Through the drifting smoke, another silhouette emerges. Another destroyer. It isn't just the USS England hunting them, it's a pack, just like the U-boats once hunted convoys. Kretschmer's blood runs cold. The hunters have become the hunted, and now they are surrounded. The second destroyer bursts through the haze like a steel apparition's leak, fast and merciless. Its bow cuts the waves with predatory intent, floodlights snapping on one by one, until the ocean around you 99 glows in stark white misery. A sailor on the conning tower whispers, "2 of them are finished." Kretschmer doesn't answer. His breath hangs in the cold air, drifting away like a ghost. He forces himself to look at the situation with the same cold precision that once made him the most feared EO boat commander in the Atlantic. 2 destroyers, both with radar and sonar. One armed with that new forward-firing mortar, the other maneuvering to block escape. This isn't a battle, it's an execution. Inside the submarine, panic spreads like fire. Bulkhead 3 is flooding. We've lost electrical power aft. Engine temperature rising. We're about to seize. Men shout over one another, slamming valves, wiping blood from their faces, trying to keep the dying boat alive just a little longer. But the U-99 is no longer a war machine. It's a coffin taking on water. On the surface, the destroyers coordinate with eerie calm. The first officer aboard the USS England raises his radio handset. Eagle 2, flank from the east. Box them in. The reply crackles through the static. Roger. Wolves closing. Wolves. The irony isn't lost on Kretschmer. For years, U-boats were the wolves of the Atlantic, silent, swift, deadly. Now the Allies have taken that title for themselves, and they're better at it. Far better. The second destroyer swings wide, its bow-mounted Hedgehog launcher clearly visible now. Twin arrays. Double the firepower, double the accuracy. Kretschmer sees it and feels his stomach drop. 2 Hedgehog-equipped destroyers? No submarine could survive that. His first officer leans close, voice trembling. "Captain, what are your orders?" Men stare at him from every angle, oil-stained, exhausted, terrified, waiting for direction from the one man who has never hesitated. But even he can't see a path out. For a long second, the roar of engines and the hiss of waves are the only sounds. Then Kretschmer straightens, shoulders squared. "Prepare the men to abandon ship." Gasps, shock, protest. "Captain, you can't. We're not finished. They'll machine gun us in the water." Kretschmer slams his fist against the railing. "We stay aboard and we die right now. In the water, maybe some of you live. Do as I say." The crew freezes. A harsh truth settles over them like the freezing mist. This is the end of U-99. Below deck, the chief engineer shouts up the ladder. "We're losing power. Once the pumps fail, we'll sink whether we like it or not." Kretschmer nods grimly. All hands topside. Move. Chaos erupts as sailors scramble up the narrow hatch. Boots thud against steel. Water gushes in below, gurgling ominously. On the USS England, the captain watches through binoculars. "They're abandoning," he says. is fire. The order ripples through the ship, but not out of Mercino. Americans want prisoners, intelligence, information on this new, fearsome captain they've been tracking. More importantly, confirmation that the Hedgehog works. Floodlights track the figures climbing onto the U-boat's slanted deck, silhouetted against the night sky. Kretschmer emerges last. He pauses on the tower, looking at the two destroyers approaching from opposite sides, white wakes spreading behind them like wings. There's no hatred in his eyes, only realization. The era of the U-boat hunter is over. The Allies have shifted the battlefield. They've turned underwater stealth into a liability and surface combat into suicide. Their new weapons are precise, relentless, emotionless. War has changed, and he is witnessing the moment it left him behind. A loud metallic groan echoes through U-99 as the bow dips suddenly. Water rushes across the deck, sweeping boots out from under men. They grab railings, shouting, slipping, falling to their knees. She's going under, someone screams. Kretschmer gives one last order. Jump. All of you jump. The first wave of sailors throws themselves into the icy Atlantic, splashing into waters cold enough to stop a man's breath. Kretschmer hesitates for half a heartbeat. He rests a hand on the conning tower. The steel vibrates beneath his palm, weak, broken, dying. A machine that once ruled the Atlantic, brought to ruin by a weapon he still barely understands. He whispers something only the sea can hear. Then he leaps. Behind him, U-99 rolls to port, stern lifting, bow sinking like a stone. From the destroyer decks, American sailors stand in silent awe as the legendary submarine begins her final dive. She disappears into the black waters without a sound. But the battle is not over. Because as the Americans move to rescue survivors, one officer aboard USS England asks the question that will define the turning point of the war. If this new Hedgehog works so well,
how many more can we build?
A shadow passes over Kretschmer as he fights to stay afloat in the churning water. He knows the answer, even if the Americans do not, enough to end the wolfpacks forever. And the Atlantic will never be the same again. Cold. It hits like a hammer. The instant Kretschmer hits the water, an icy fist that steals the air from his lungs and sends pain shooting through every limb. North Atlantic cold isn't just temperature, it's punishment. He forces himself to kick upward. The surface explodes around him as he breaks through, gasping, sucking in air that feels only slightly warmer than the sea. Around him, his men thrash in the darkness, some shouting, some silent, some already slipping under. And overhead, the destroyers loom like giants. Lifeboats into the water. Comes a shout from the USS England. Canvas boats splash down, ropes unfurl. American sailors lean over the rails, scanning the churning waves for survivors. Kretschmer manages to grab onto a floating wooden crate, maybe debris from the chaos on deck. He clings to it, shivering violently. His breath rattles from chest to lips in quick, foggy bursts. The destroyer's spotlight sweeps across him. There's one more. Fetch him. A rescue boat rows toward him, its bow cutting clean lines through the swells. The oarsmen row with urgency, but without panic. Maybe have done this before, many times, as the Allies have sunk many U-boats recently. And tonight, Kretschmer finally understands why. Lifts his head, dragging in a ragged breath, and watches as the men approach. Take my hand, one shouts. The boat rocks as they haul him aboard. He collapses into the bottom of the craft, coughing seawater, his clothes soaked and heavy. One sailor studies him, Captain. Kretschmer nods weakly. The American's expression softens not with sympathy, but with a kind of grim professional respect. Welcome aboard, Captain. The Atlantic's a different place now. They row back toward the destroyer, which towers over them like a floating fortress. The Hedgehog launchers gleam under spotlight beams, angular, strange, brutal, still steaming from the earlier barrage. Kretschmer stares at them. Those metal spines, those little tubes, the unassuming arrangement of launch heads. So small, so simple, yet it sank U-99 in under 15 minutes. The rescue boat hooks onto a hoist and rises slowly toward the destroyer's deck. The cold spray hits Kretschmer's face again, but he barely feels it. His mind is somewhere else, back underwater, hearing those terrible, precise explosions ripping through the sea like underwater lightning. He looks up at the American sailors waiting above. One officer, tall, sharp-faced, calm, steps forward. Captain Otto Kretschmer, correct? Kretschmer does not answer. He doesn't need to. His reputation preceded him long before the Atlantic grew teeth. The American offers a hand, not a gesture of friendship, but of victory. You've caused a lot of trouble out here, the officer says evenly. But trouble's finally catching up. Kretschmer takes the hand and is pulled onto the deck. His legs wobble beneath him, his uniform dripping onto the polished steel floor. For a moment, he stands face to face with the Hedgehog launcher. Up close, it looks almost ridiculous. A cluster of stubby spigots, crude rack of pipes. It resembles an agricultural tool more than a naval weapon, but he knows better. This thing isn't crude. It is elegant in its lethality, designed not by sailors, but by mathematicians, physicists, and engineers who understood geometry of detection, the timing of sonar returns, the hydrodynamics of sinking charges. A weapon born from laboratories, not shipyards. A weapon no U-boat captain has ever trained to counter. Kretschmer feels something he hasn't felt since the early days of the war: hopelessness. The American officer crosses his arms, wondering how it works. Kretschmer says nothing, but yes he is. The officer gestures toward the launcher. Those bombs don't explode unless they hit a submarine. No wasted charges, no guessing games, and we don't have to pass over you to drop them. He taps his own temple. We fire it where you're going, not where you were. Kretschmer exhales. That's the difference. Traditional depth charges are always behind, always late, always reactive. But this is anticipation. Prediction. Foresight turned into weapon. Another American sailor speaks quietly to the officer. More escort groups requesting the Hedgehog, sir. They say the Atlantic is turning in our favor. The officer nods. It is, he says, and it's not stopping here. He turns to Kretschmer. The German wolfpacks thought they controlled these waters. But with this, with what's coming next, he pauses. Your war is changing faster than you can fight it. Kretschmer glances at the dark waves where U-99 disappeared. No oil slick rises. No debris surfaces. She sank cleanly, swallowed by the sea, as if erasing herself from the world. He knows the other U-boat commanders, the ones still prowling the Atlantic, have no idea what awaits them. Not yet, but they will. When they do, it will already be too late. As the destroyer pushes forward to rejoin the convoy, Kretschmer sits shivering under a wool blanket, staring out at the black, endless void of the Atlantic. He whispers to himself, the hunters are finished. But even he doesn't know that the real revelation, the one that will shake the Kriegsmarine to its core, is still ahead. Because the Hedgehog is only the beginning. Behind it waits sonar revolution, air escort saturation, new radar, faster destroyers, code-breaking warfare, and in just a few months, the ocean will become the most dangerous place in the world for a German submarine. The Allies have not just changed the rules, they have rewritten the entire game.